You don't forget a call like that. I was 2 years into the job. Still green, still figuring out when to follow protocol and when to follow your gut. Dispatch said a local had called in a foul odor coming from a trailer on a vacant lot just outside of town. Said it had been getting worse all week. The address was familiar. Belonged to a man named Dale Grayson, retired mechanic, lived alone. Known for being a little weird but harmless. People said he mostly kept to himself after his brother died. No complaints, no arrests. The kind of guy who fades into the background. Except that Dale had died the week before. Cardiac arrest, confirmed by the coroner. The body picked up. Obituary posted. The trailer was supposed to be empty, so I figured maybe something died under it. A possum or raccoon. Happens more than you'd think. When I got there, I knew right away it wasn't that. The lot was overgrown, grass up to my knees. Trailer looked sun-faded and quiet. Front steps had collapsed, door held shut with a heavy-duty chain and padlock. And that smell? It hit me before I got halfway to the porch. Not roadkill, not mold. Something wrong. I circled around the back and found a small, grimy window, cracked open maybe 2 inches. That's when I heard it. A whimper. Software strained, like a dying animal. I shouted, "Sheriff's office? Is someone in there?" Silence. Then again, barely audible. "Help." My blood went cold. I radioed for backup and a bolt cutter. 20 minutes later, we snapped the lock and breached the door. Inside was pitch black. No power, no windows open. The heat trapped inside was suffocating, humid, heavy, rancid. The smell was overpowering. It was coming from the back room. We pushed in, guns drawn, flashlight beams cutting through the dark. And there, chained to a rusted bed frame, was a girl. Maybe 16. Maybe younger. Pale. Eyes sunken. Skin raw around her wrists and ankles where the shackles had rubbed her raw. She was alive. Barely. She didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just looked at us like she didn't believe we were real. We called EMS. Unlocked the chains. Got her out. She weighed maybe 90 pounds. There were no windows in that room. Just a bucket in the corner. And on the walls, drawings, dozens of them. Scratched in with pen, marker, fingernails. Stick figures, names, tally marks, hundreds of tally marks. The girl didn't speak for 2 days. When she finally did, the story was worse than I imagined. She'd gone missing 6 months ago. Reported as a runaway from a neighboring county. Everyone had assumed she'd taken off voluntarily, but she hadn't. She said Dale grabbed her from a bus stop, drugged her, chained her, and no one, not a single soul, had come looking near enough to find her. She'd been trapped in that room the entire time, and the week after Dale's death, she was still there, alone, starving, listening for footsteps that never came. The timeline lined up. He died in his truck a mile from town, collapsed behind the wheel, declared DOA. No one knew he had someone locked inside his trailer. Because why would they? There were no signs, no screams. He never let her near a window. No mail carriers ever got close enough. And the few neighbors nearby had long stopped paying attention to the old man in the faded trailer. We pulled the house apart. Found receipts for restraints, duct tape, cheap food. Everything bought in cash. A notebook in his dresser detailed feeding schedules, punishment notes, chilling little lines like, "No light today, cried too much, asked about her mom again, shut that down." He treated her like an animal, and for a week after he died, she stayed locked in that dark room, because he never told her how to get out, never gave her keys, never even taught her how to scream loud enough. She survived on the last few bottles of water he'd left behind, and we only found her because someone got tired of the smell. That's the part that keeps me up. We didn't save her. We found her by accident. That girl had been less than 6 miles from a sheriff's office, a fire station, and a dozen churches. For 6 months. And not one of us had heard her. Not one of us thought to look. I've seen worse since then. Murders. Wrecks. Children burned in house fires. But this is the one I don't talk about. Because when people ask what the worst part of this job is, They expect blood and violence. They don't want to hear the truth. The worst part is realizing how long someone can suffer, just because no one was paying attention. It started with a 911 call from a group of teenagers. They were camping in a patch of woods just outside of town, technically private land, but no one enforced it. Around midnight, they heard something. Not animals, not people talking. Screams. One of the girls said it sounded like someone was being torn open. They called the sheriff's office and stayed on the line. They were terrified. Swore they weren't high or drunk. Just a group of bored kids trying to do something different for the weekend. What they heard out there broke them. I was on shift with Deputy Rhodes when the call came in. We grabbed flashlights and headed out. The campsite was about a quarter-mile off the road. We hiked in, found the kids huddled together near a cold fire ring. They were pale, shaking. One had wet himself. They pointed southeast, toward the thickest part of the woods. Said the screaming came in bursts. We told them to stay put. Rhodes and I moved slowly, scanning the trees, calling out. We heard it too. Not a scream exactly, but a moan. Long, muffled, wet, like someone trying to cry with a mouth full of dirt. It came from the ground. Rhodes spotted the leaves first. A strange pattern, flattened in a way that didn't match any animal bed or windfall. We cleared them away and found a trapdoor. Wooden, old, hinged at the top but buried to look like forest floor. We pried it open. Beneath it, a hole. About 5 feet deep, maybe 4 feet wide. Inside, curled at the bottom like a broken insect, was a man. Naked. Filthy. Eyes swollen, half shut. Skin covered in sores. Ribs poking out like branches. He was alive. Barely. He reached up, fingers twitching, and whispered, "Help me." We called for EMTs and climbed down with a rope. His legs were too weak to stand. He was sunburned and bleeding from the knees. We asked his name. He said, "Doesn't matter." We asked who put him there. He said, "I don't know." Then he looked at me, eyes suddenly clear, and said, "There are more, deeper in." Back at the station, things unraveled fast. He had no ID, no missing person match. Fingerprints came back sealed. Federal lock. A day later, we got a visit. Not from the state, not from the feds either, at least, not officially. 2 men in black jackets, no badges, no names. They asked to see the man. We told them he was being treated at County General. They didn't ask for directions. They already knew. An hour later, the man was gone. Transferred, they said. To where? Classified. Even the hospital staff was locked out of the record. But that's not the part that gets to me. It's what we found when we went back. Rhodes and I returned to the woods the next morning. We wanted to look for more pits, see if the guy had been telling the truth. We brought a canine unit. 3 officers, 2 dogs. We found 3 more sites. All covered. All hidden. 2 had been filled in, fresh dirt, no grass. But the third was open, empty. Except for a metal tag nailed to the inside wall. Stainless steel, stamped with a number, a 07. We bagged it, sent it up the chain. Never heard anything back. The teenagers? We brought them in for follow-up interviews. One of them, Logan, the oldest, said something I haven't been able to forget. He said they'd seen someone in the woods before the screaming started. A figure, standing just beyond the firelight, wearing a mask, not a ski mask, not rubber, a full face cover, black, no eye holes, just standing, watching. Then gone. I asked why they didn't mention it earlier. Logan said, "I thought I imagined it, until I heard what was in the ground." Officially, the case is closed. The report says an adult male was found in a shallow confinement pit. He was removed and treated. No suspects, no charges, no press release. Unofficially, we know what we saw. The way that pit was built. It wasn't a trap. It was a cell, designed to hold someone alive, not kill them. Someone had fed him, just enough to keep him breathing, but not enough to let him scream loud enough. And the way he said it, testing, that's the word that haunts me. Not torture, not kidnapping. Testing. Like he was part of something bigger. Like there was a purpose to it. Rhodes transferred a few months later. said he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there. He wasn't wrong. 2 weeks ago, I found a note on my windshield, plain envelope. Inside, one line, typed. You only found a 03. That was it. No return address, no prints, just that. We sent it in. Came back clean. So now I drive those woods once a week. Never off trail, never alone. And when I see leaves scattered just wrong enough, I keep moving. Because I'm not ready to find the rest. When you've been a deputy long enough, certain calls blur together. Suspicious vehicles, loud arguments, barking dogs. But every so often, one sticks. Not because of how it ended, but because of how long it went on before anyone noticed. The report came from a woman named Erica Langley. Mid-30s. Single mom. Lived in a rental at the edge of town. Modest little one-story with a peeling porch and a swing set out back. She came into the station, not hysterical, but close. Said her food kept going missing. Nothing big, just items here and there. A leftover sandwich, 2 juice boxes, a slice of pie she'd packed for her daughter's lunch. At first, she blamed her kid. Then she thought maybe she was just tired and forgetful, but it was happening too often. And then came the noises, not loud, just soft shuffling beneath the floorboards. At night, she thought it was mice at first, maybe raccoons under the house. She called the landlord. He said the crawlspace was sealed. That's when she came to us. I'll be honest, I didn't expect much. I figured maybe a stray cat got in through a broken vent. We sent 2 units out just to be thorough. I was one of them. The house looked normal enough when we pulled up. Erica met us on the porch, her daughter clutching her leg like a lifeline. I've barely been sleeping, she said. I don't feel safe. I believed her. You can fake panic, but not exhaustion. She looked like she hadn't rested in days. We did a full walkthrough of the house, nothing off. Windows secure, doors locked, no signs of forced entry. But the second we stepped toward the back hallway, I felt it, an odd pressure in the air, like we weren't as alone as we thought. The crawl space access was in the laundry room, one of those square wooden hatches with a pull string. It hadn't been opened in years, or so we thought. We pulled it down. A gust of stale, sour air hit us like a wave. Foul, damp. Flashlights on, guns ready. We dropped down one at a time, and immediately saw the signs. Blankets, a lantern, food wrappers, her food, cans, water bottles, and in the far corner, a man, thin, pale, knees tucked to chest, eyes wide and blinking like he hadn't seen light in days. He didn't speak, just stared. When we cuffed him, he didn't resist. He was wearing 2 layers of her laundry, one of her daughter's socks, and he'd been living under there for weeks. But that wasn't the worst part. What we found pinned to the beams around his little makeshift nest. That's what kept me up for nights afterward. Photos of Erica. Some printed, others developed from film. Some were of her on the porch, walking to her car. One of her sleeping on the couch, clearly taken through the window. Her work schedule, handwritten on a yellow legal pad. Her daughter's school information. A list titled, When She's Alone. We bagged everything, called it in, got a detective assigned. The man refused to answer questions, didn't have ID. Fingerprints came back as a John Doe from another county, arrested once for trespassing but never claimed a name. No known address, no family, a literal ghost. Erica was shaken. Moved out the same week, didn't even come back for her things, just sent a relative to grab the essentials. And I don't blame her. Because here's the thing, he didn't break in. The crawl space hadn't been forced. There was a vent behind the bushes, one we missed the first time. The screen was loose, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. And from the marks on the dirt, he'd been coming and going long before he stayed, watching, studying, waiting for a pattern. The working theory, he was going to do something. We just stopped him too early to know what. And that's what chills me. We think about the threats that come crashing through doors, the ones who yell, threaten, break things. But sometimes the real danger crawls quietly beneath your home, he listens to your conversations, eats your food, takes your photo while you sleep, and waits, just long enough to feel like he belongs there. Evictions don't usually involve more than a lock change and a disappointed property owner. But this one stuck with me. The notice came through after months of no contact. The landowner, some out-of-state investor, said the tenant had gone off-grid and stopped paying. The cabin sat deep in the woods, barely reachable by service road. A mile from the main highway and completely out of sight. No mailbox, no power lines, no address on the door. Technically it was a squat, but the paperwork checked out. The office sent me and Deputy Lorenz out to deliver the final notice and make sure it wasn't being used illegally. We didn't expect anyone to be there, but the front door was unlocked. The second we stepped inside, we knew something was wrong. The air was stale and hot. No windows, no lights on. Just a tight, low-ceilinged interior packed with electrical equipment. Monitors, switchboards, servers humming louder than they should in a place that looked like it hadn't seen maintenance in years. That was the first room. The second room had the cameras, mounted, concealed, lined up neatly on the far wall, each with its own little monitor beneath it. 47 total, each screen showing a live feed. But they weren't of the cabin. They were of houses, homes in our town. We recognized them instantly. The corner of Mrs. Halbert's kitchen, the back hallway of the elementary school, the living room of the Miller family's farmhouse. All live, all in color, some with audio. You could hear a clock ticking, a dog snoring, a baby crying from a monitor in the background. I felt sick. We scanned the feeds, checking addresses, making notes. About a dozen were empty rooms, but many weren't. People were home, eating, watching TV, talking to their kids. No idea they were being watched. The cabin was powered by a diesel generator out back. Cables ran through a crude satellite rig bolted to the roof. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. I tried the back room. Locked. Lorenz kicked it open. Inside was a mattress. Dirty. No sheets. Next to it, a folding table covered in photos. Not stored, not printed. Pinned. Polaroids. Candid shots taken through windows. Through blinds. At night. Some zoomed in. Others wide, showing full families. Couples. Children. And under every photo, dates, times, room names. 10:52 p.m. Master bath. Brush teeth. 6:34 a.m. Nursery. Lifts baby from crib. 2:15 p.m. Laundry room. Alone again. Every movement, every routine, all logged. We called it in, secured the cabin, waited for backup and tech. I remember pacing while we waited, staring at one of the monitors. A woman folding laundry, her toddler playing on the floor behind her. Just an ordinary moment. And then she looked up, right at the camera, like she knew. I flinched, watched, waited for her to move, but she just smiled at her kid and went back to folding, blissfully unaware. When tech arrived, they spent 6 hours documenting the whole setup. Pulled hard drives, traced the signal, found a dozen signal amplifiers buried under leaf piles around the property, boosting the range without being detected. But no suspect. The tenant on the lease? Fake ID. No prints in the cabin, no useful DNA, just thousands of hours of surveillance. We held a town meeting under the guise of security upgrades. Quietly approached the homes that had been tapped. No media, no announcement. People were terrified enough already. The official story? Vandalism. Misuse of public utilities. But the real story never made it out. You can't explain to a community that one of their own watched them, ate dinner with them, waved to them at gas stations, and then went back to a cabin to record their lives in secret. It gets worse. 2 weeks later, Lorenz found something while cataloging evidence from the crawl space under the cabin. A box, locked, inside, USB drives, each labeled with names, ours, mine, his, dispatch, our families, footage, of us, Lorenz quitting coffee, me limping from an old injury, my daughter brushing her hair in her room. We were being watched too. That's when we realized this wasn't just about control. It was personal. The last drive in the box had a single file, no date, no label. We played it. It was the cabin. Our cabin. From a camera hidden behind a beam. The angle showed us entering, exploring, realizing. It ended with us standing in front of the monitors, just like we had 2 weeks earlier. and right before it cut to black, the camera panned, slightly. Someone was still inside when we arrived. We never found them, still haven't. I moved since then. New place, no smart devices, no windows without locks. Because now, every time I turn on a light, I wonder who's watching me turn it off. The call came in at 11:06 p.m. Female, mid-30s, screaming that someone was inside her house. Dispatch said it was hard to understand her. Panicked, gasping, stammering. But two things were clear. She was alone, and she was terrified. The address was a small farmhouse outside city limits. Remote, quiet. The kind of place you pick when you don't want to be bothered. No history of calls from that residence. No prior disturbances. Just her and, according to her file, one old golden retriever. Deputy Colton and I were first on scene. The house was dark. No porch light. No cars in the driveway. Door was closed. Curtains drawn. We approached carefully. Lights off. Listening. The dog was barking inside. Frenzied. Desperate. No sound from the woman. I knocked. Sheriff's office. No answer. Colton circled to the back. All windows locked. No signs of forced entry. No broken glass. No footprints in the fresh dew. And no response from inside. That's when I noticed the door. Still locked. From the inside. Deadbolt engaged. I looked through the front window with my flashlight and nearly dropped it. She was hanging. From the rafters above the living room. Neck tilted, hair covering her face. Feet suspended 2 inches off the floor. The dog was at her feet, pacing in frantic circles, barking up at her like it couldn't understand what was happening. We forced entry. Colton went to the woman. I pulled the dog back and leashed it. It wasn't aggressive, just panicked, whining, pulling toward her. Colton stepped back, shook his head. Dead. But here's the thing. Her hands were tied behind her back. Rope. Tight, clean knots. No fraying, no struggling. You don't tie your own hands and then hang yourself from a rafter 5 feet above you. Not without help. And still, the door was locked from the inside. We cleared the rest of the house. No one else there. One back door, sealed. Windows secure. Bedroom untouched. Kitchen normal. No blood. No signs of a struggle. Just that one awful scene in the living room. And a phone on the floor with a cracked screen and a call log open to 911. She'd made the call at 11:06 p.m. We arrived at 11:14. 8 minutes. We pulled the security footage from the doorbell cam. The cloud had uploaded a 30-second clip when motion was detected earlier that night. It showed her stepping outside at 10:48, looking around, then turning quickly and going back in. That was it. No one else on the feed. She was alone. The ME confirmed she died between 11:10 and 11:12, which means she was still alive when we pulled up. While we were knocking on the door, she was inside that room, dying. And we still don't know how. No stool, no ladder, nothing she could have climbed on. The knot was high, nailed into a beam that would have required at least a step stool. But there wasn't one in the house. We checked the garage, closets, everything. It was as if someone floated up, tied the rope, bound her hands, and disappeared into thin air. Her prints were the only ones on the doorknobs. There were no signs of tampering, no forced locks. Just a dead woman, a barking dog, and a house that had sealed itself shut around her. We canvassed the area. Neighbors didn't hear anything. Closest house was half a mile away. No one had seen her since the previous morning. We searched the attic. Nothing. Just insulation, dust, and a single shoe. Not hers. Wrong size. We bagged it. Still haven't found the match. The case went cold. Officially ruled undetermined death with evidence of foul play. But the truth? We don't know what happened. A few weeks later, Colton called me over. He'd gone through her phone again, scrolling back months. She'd made a series of Google searches starting 3 weeks before her death. How to know if someone's living in your attic. Signs of hidden cameras in your home. Can a locked door still mean someone got in? She never reported anything to us. No formal complaints. No suspicious activity logged. Just fear building in the background. She was trying to convince herself she was imagining it. And maybe that's what someone wanted. We went back one more time, hoping to find something we missed. There was a crawl space beneath the living room. Colton checked it with a flashlight. Said he found something scratched into the inside of the access door. 4 words, written with what looked like the edge of a key. Still here. Still watching. We sealed it up. The dog was adopted by a neighbor. He's calmer now, but still stares at corners like they're whispering to him. And me? I've been on this job 17 years. I've seen overdoses, break-ins, shootings, but this case still keeps me up. Because every time I lock my door and check my windows, I wonder how many places in my house I've never thought to look. The call came in just after 2 a.m. Grayson, the overnight clerk at the 24-hour gas station off Route 7, said there was a semi parked behind the store. Been there for 3 nights. Same spot. Engine off. No movement. No lights. And now, he was starting to smell something. Said it wasn't gas or oil. It was sour. Organic. He wasn't panicking, but something in his voice made dispatch flag it as more than just an abandoned vehicle. I was already out near the east side, so I responded solo. When I pulled up, the store was empty. Fluorescent lights humming, aisles stocked, usual night shift quiet. Grayson was waiting behind the counter, eyes darting between me and the CCTV feed. "It's still there," he said, and pointed. Behind the building, tucked between the dumpsters and the tree line, was the truck. Dark red cab, long white trailer. No company markings, no DOT numbers, no plates. I walked around the cab. Locked. No keys in sight, windows up. But the trailer wasn't locked, just latched. And that smell? It hit me the second I touched the handle. Rotten sweat. Old piss. Faint metallic tang of blood and something worse, like a body left out too long under wet clothes. I called it in. Told dispatch I was investigating a potentially abandoned vehicle with suspicious contents. Then I opened the trailer and found 50 cots, metal-framed, thin mattresses, military surplus style, all lined in perfect rows, tight spacing, heads against the left wall, feet toward the right, no sheets, no personal items, no bags, all of them unmade, used. At the far end was a 5-gallon bucket with a lid. I didn't open it. Next to the bucket, bolted into the wall, was a clipboard. On it, a list of names, 50 lines, each with a name, a date, and a letter beside it. Most said E, some said R. 3 had no letter at all. The last name was dated 2 days ago. I backed out, called for backup, forensics, and hazmat. Within the hour, the lot was cordoned off. Grayson gave a full statement. Said he first noticed the truck late Tuesday night. Figured someone was sleeping. But after 3 days and no driver, he got nervous. He'd never seen anyone enter or exit. No food deliveries, no movement. Forensics swept the cab. Empty. Glove box had a screwdriver, a pack of mints, and a faded paper receipt from a truck stop in New Mexico dated 6 weeks earlier. The logbook? Missing. The VIN number on the dash had been scratched out. Deep gouges. Like someone didn't want this truck ever being traced. We ran the names from the clipboard. 4 matched recent missing persons reports across multiple states. 2 from California. 1 from Idaho. 1 from right here in our own county. A teenager reported missing by her aunt after never returning from a party. No one had linked them together. Until now. Inside the trailer we found small fibers, torn shoelaces, a child's hair tie. Tiny clues that said these cots weren't just stored there. They'd been used regularly. Some of the mattresses had faint outlines where bodies had lain. One had a small bloodstain. Another had scratches on the metal frame, deep enough to be fingernails. No cameras inside. No writing. Except for a note taped to the back wall. Plain white paper. Typed. They are processed in batches. Do not disturb. That's it. No names. No instructions. No threats. But the way it was worded, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a system, a routine, an operation. The truck was seized and transported to a secure facility. We never found the driver. No nearby cameras showed it arriving. Grayson swore it wasn't there when his shift started Tuesday. And get this, the CCTV footage from that night? Corrupted. All 7 hours between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. glitched out, like static swallowing the frames. The feed before and after was fine. We tried tracing the trailer VIN, burned off the metal plate. Same with the registration inside the door, gone, erased. We checked with way stations, toll roads, no records. It was like the truck appeared from nowhere, parked behind the gas station, and waited. And then someone walked away from it, or never left it at all. We still don't know what the letters meant. E, R. Were they statuses, conditions, somebody's twisted intake process? The 3 names without letters? We checked. All 3 were children, under 12. No missing reports filed, no family traced, just names on a clipboard in a steel box filled with rotting air and secrets. The truck's refrigeration unit? Disconnected. But the wiring was there. It had been hooked up recently. One of the mechanics who inspected it later said the coolant lines had a sweet smell. Said that meant it had been running cold. For weeks. No driver, no fingerprints, just 50 cots, and a list of names. We've never seen anything like it before. But something tells me it wasn't the only truck. We still don't say his name out loud. Not in the station, not during roll call, not even when the new deputies ask why badge 001 hasn't been reassigned. Because Sheriff Clay Harmon didn't just disappear. He vanished, and then so did the place that took him. It happened 2 years ago. It was a quiet night, no storms, no incidents. Sheriff Harmon was running solo, as he often did. Said it helped him think. He liked clearing the board himself when the town slept. That night, dispatch radioed in a call about an abandoned trailer spotted on a dirt road up near Cinder Hollow. The property owner, a logger named Max Pinter, said it hadn't been there the day before. He drove past that stretch every day for work. Now it was there. No plates, no signs of towing. Just a single wide trailer with no lights and no sound, parked in the middle of a long abandoned access trail. Sheriff Harmon radioed that he'd check it out. The time was 11:38 p.m. He was never heard from again. The cruiser was found the next morning, engines still warm, driver's side door open, flashlight in the grass. His dash cam footage was still running. That's how we know what happened. It starts with Harmon pulling off the road, headlights washing over a beat-up white trailer sitting in a small clearing. No signage, no mailbox. Just a mailbox post snapped in half, leaning like it had given up years ago. He radios dispatch. Approaching now. Trailer looks empty. No visible movement. He steps out of the vehicle, walks toward the trailer, stops at the door. Another transmission. Knocking now. If no response, we'll do a sweep. Then he opens the door and steps inside. You can see it on camera, his silhouette passing through the threshold. And then, nothing. 10 seconds go by. 20. No movement. Then the screen glitches. Static flickers across the footage. When it clears, the trailer is gone. The clearing is empty. Just grass flattened in a rectangular patch where the trailer had been sitting not 30 seconds earlier. No taillights. No sound. No sign of movement. Just the cruiser. Lights still flashing. And no Sheriff Harmon. That was the last known sighting. We canvassed the area, every inch. Brought in dogs, thermal drones, helicopters. Nothing. No tracks. No disturbances. No vehicle large enough to tow that trailer could have made it out of that area without tearing up the ground. But there were no tire marks. No grooves. And the really weird part? That patch of flattened grass where the trailer sat. It grew back wrong, like scorched earth trying to hide itself. To this day, nothing grows quite right in that spot. Not weeds, not wildflowers. Just a constant dark smear on the ground like something burned the roots without touching the soil. We tried tracking the origin of the trailer, asked around neighboring counties, checked VINs, looked for similar models. Nothing. No one claimed it. No one saw it moved. It just appeared. And then took him. The state sent investigators. They pulled the dash cam drive, ran forensic enhancements, frame by frame. One tech, after hours, ran it through a thermal filter. Found a blip just before the static hit. A shape. Not a person. Not an animal. Just a shift in the air, like a heat signature wrapping itself around the trailer. Like it had a pulse. He deleted the file the next day and resigned the next week. Said something was watching him through his office window every night since he touched the footage. Wouldn't say more than that. We never found Harmon's body. Never found the trailer. And here's what still guts me. 2 weeks after he vanished, his cruiser's onboard system pinged a location. A GPS flash, like the vehicle had reconnected briefly with satellite. The coordinates? The exact same clearing. But when we got there, it was still empty. Except for one thing. A single sheet of paper tucked under a rock in the center of the patch. Typed. No header. No footer. Just one sentence. You never knock on a door unless you're ready to answer it. That sheet is sealed in evidence, though we don't talk about it much. The clearing is closed off now. Marked as restricted wildlife survey land. Locals stay away. The new hires sometimes ask why we don't investigate further. Why we don't dig. But we know better. Because 3 months ago, another cruiser's GPS pinged the same clearing. And when the deputy arrived to check it out, there was nothing there. But his radio turned itself on, and a voice came through. Faint, crackling, just one word, repeated 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. It started with a group of kids playing in a field just outside the old sawmill property. They were digging around in the dirt, looking for arrowheads or bones, like kids do, when one of them hit something hard. Plastic. They thought it was a toy at first, but it turned out to be a piece of capped PVC pipe, sticking straight up out of the earth like a vent. About 4 inches wide. Capped at the top. Didn't look like it belonged to anything. Naturally, they opened it. Inside was a single cassette tape in a Ziploc bag. No label, no markings. Just a handwritten year on the case. 1986. They brought it home, showed it to their uncle, a guy with an old stereo and a habit of collecting vintage gear. He popped it in out of curiosity. 10 seconds in, he pulled it out and called us. I was on duty that night. He handed me the tape without looking me in the eye, said he didn't want it in his house. We took it back to the station, ran it on an evidence deck. The recording starts with static. A long hum. Then a voice. A man, crying. Whispering something unintelligible. Then louder, panicked. Please no, don't shut the door, please! Then banging, screams, sustained. It goes on for almost 2 minutes, the last 30 seconds. Just breathing, then silence. We redacted the tape immediately, sent it to the lab, tagged it as possible historic evidence. The next morning, we went back out to the field, dug around the PVC pipe, and realized it wasn't alone. There were 7 more, all capped, all buried at an angle, all the same depth. Each contained a Ziploc with a cassette, each labeled with a different year. The most recent was marked 2017. No pattern, no order, just individual timestamps, all handwritten in the same tight block lettering. We played them, not all the way through, just enough to confirm content. Every one was the same format. Ambient noise, then distress, screaming, pleading. One tape featured what sounded like a child counting backward. Another had someone repeating a prayer between choked gasps. One tape, marked 1994, had over 30 minutes of someone humming the Happy Birthday song. On loop. When they stopped, they whispered, "I'm ready now." That one broke the room. We brought in forensics. Dug the area systematically. Found nothing else. No bones, no structures, no graves. Just 8 pipes, spaced like clock ticks around a small clearing, with decades of audio buried inside. We canvassed the county. Looked for any cold cases near those years. Got a few hits. People who vanished without a trace. Teenagers mostly. One woman in her 40s. But no evidence tying them to this field. And definitely not to a systematic series of audio logs buried in PVC. We sent the tapes to Quantico. They ran them through voice profiling, got partial matches on 3 tapes, all from different parts of the state. No known connections between the victims, no suspects, no similarities in lifestyle, travel, employment, or last known location. It's like someone selected them at random and kept a record, not in photos, not in writing, but in sound. Someone once suggested maybe it was performance art, a twisted kind of storytelling. But the look in the ME's eyes after listening to the 1983 tape said otherwise. That one had something extra. Footsteps, heavy breathing, and one clear, chilling phrase before it cuts to static. The others are quieter. We resealed the site, cemented it over, filed it under sealed evidence, and issued a gag order on all personnel involved. But a week later, someone cut the lock on our evidence room. Didn't steal the tapes, didn't touch the player. They just left a note, typed. 4 words. You missed one. We never figured out who left it. But the next day, we got a call from a town 40 miles east. Construction crew had uncovered something on a back lot. A capped PVC pipe. Inside, a tape. 2022. We never released the timeline of our findings. No one outside the department knew the years. And yet, there it was. Brand new. Same handwriting. Same bag. That's when we realized, this isn't over. Whoever made these recordings didn't stop. They're still out there. Still recording. Still burying. And if there's one thing I've learned from listening to over 8 hours of pure, unfiltered human terror, it's that we were never supposed to hear them. Because you don't bury tapes unless you want them found. Eventually. And I think we're finding them exactly when we're supposed to.